Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Krishna Gurave Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Chennai. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvani Bhasha Nirveshaskalane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivastava Gauravangarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Second verse 1 Shri Badarayane Ruvacha
Shri Badarayane Ruvacha
Purvam Sampravakshami
Purvam Sampravakshami
Yatra Jatosi Bharata
Yatra Jatosi Bharata
Yatra Rajarshaya Vamsya
Yatra Rajarsayo Vamsya
Brahma Vamsyascha Jagire
Brahma Vamsyascha Jagire. Shri Badarayane Ruvacha Shri Badarayane Ruvacha Vamsam Pravakshami Vamsam Pravakshami Yatra Jatosi Bharata Yatra Rajarsayo Vamsya Yatra Rajarsayo Vamsya Brahma Vamsyascha Jagire. Shri Badarayane Ruvacha Shri Badarayane Ruvacha Purvam Sampravakshami Yatra Jatosi Bharata Yatra Rajarsayo Vamsya Brahma Vamsyascha Jagire. Shri Badarayane Ruvacha Purvam Sampravakshami Yatra Jatosi Bharata Yatra Rajarsayo Vamsya Brahma Vamsyascha Jagire.
Shri Badarayane Ruvacha
Shri Badarayane Ruvacha
Sukadeva Goswami said
Shri Sukadeva Goswami said
Dynasty of Maharaj Puru
the dynasty of Maharaj Puru
Purvakshami Now I shall narrate Yatra in which dynasty Jata you were born Bharata O Maharaj Parikshit
O Maharaj Parikshit
descendant of Maharaj Bharata Yatra in which dynasty Rajarshaya all the kings were saintly Vamsya one after another Brahma Vamsya many Brahmana dynasties also grew up. Translation Sukadeva Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Maharaj Bharata, I shall now describe the dynasty of Kuru, in which you were born, in which many saintly kings appeared, and from which many dynasties of Brahmanas began. To report there are many historical instances by which we can understand that from Kshatriyas many Brahmanas were born, and that from Brahmanas many Kshatriyas have been born. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvanya Maya Srishtam Guna Kama Vibhaga Svaha, according to the three worlds of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. Therefore, regardless of the family in which one takes birth, when one is qualified with the symptoms of a particular section, he is to be described. Accordingly, Yo Lakshanam Proktam, one's place in the varna divisions of society is determined by one's symptoms or qualities. This is maintained everywhere in the Shastra. Birth is a secondary consideration. The first consideration is one's qualities and activities. King Janamajaya was born in this dynasty of Puru. Janamajaya's son was Prachinvam, and his son was Pravira. Thereafter, Pravira's son was Manusyu, and from Manusyu came the son named Shalupada. The son of Charapada was Sudyu, and the son of Sudyu was Bahugava. Bahugava's son was Samyati. From Samyati came a son named Ahumyati, from whom Radraspa was born. Radraspa had 10 sons named Riteyu, Kaksheyu, Prakrite-yuta, Jalayu, Sannate, Dharmayu, Satyayu, Bhaktayu, and Vanayu. Of these 10 sons, Vaneyu was the youngest. As the 10 senses, which are products of the universal life, act under the control of life. These 10 sons of Raudrasva acted under Raudrasva's full control. All of them were born of the Apsara named Hitachi. Prateyo had a son named Rantinava, who had 3 sons named Sumati, Dhruva, and Apratirata. Apratirata had only 1 son whose name was Kanda. The son of Kanda was Medatiti, whose sons, all Brahmanas, were headed by Prakshanna. The son of Rantinava named Sumati had a son named Rebi. Maharaj Dushmanta is well known as the son of Rebi. Once when King Dushmanta went to the forest to hunt and was very much fatigued, he approached the residence of Kanda Muni. There he saw a most beautiful woman who looked exactly like the goddess of fortune, who sat there illuminating the entire ashram with her approaches. The king was actually attracted by her beauty, and therefore he approached her, accompanied by some of the soldiers, and spoke to her. Seeing the beautiful woman, the king was very much enlivened, and the fatigue of his hunting excursion was relieved. He was, of course, very much attracted because of lusty desires, and thus he inquired from her as follows in a joking mood. "Oh, beautiful lotus-eyed woman, who are you? Whose daughter are you? What purpose do you have in this solitary forest? Why are you staying here?" "Oh, most beautiful one, it appears to my mind that you must be the daughter of a Kshatriya, because I belong to the Kuru dynasty, and my mind never endeavors to enjoy anything irreligiously. Purport: Maharaj Dushmanta indirectly expressed a desire to marry Sakuntala, when she appeared to me. His mind to be the daughter of some Kshatriya king. Sakuntala said, I am the daughter of Vishwamitra. My mother, Menaka, left me in the forest. O hero, the most powerful Saint Kanda Muni knows all about this. Now, let me know how may I serve you." Purport: Sakuntala informed Maharaj Dushmanta that although she never saw or knew her father or mother, Kanda Muni knew everything about her, and she had heard from him that she was the daughter of Vishwamitra and that her mother was Menaka, who had left her in the forest. "O king, with eyes like petals of a lotus, kindly come, sit down, and accept whatever reception we can offer. We have a supply of nivara rice that you may kindly take, and if you so desire, stay here without hesitation." So this begins another description of dynasties, and also here we have the story of Dushmanta and Menaka and Sakuntala, etc. Within this description of the dynasty of Kuru, which will be followed by the dynasty of Bharata. So this first verse here shows how the descendants were classified. Some were Rajarshis or Kshatriyas, and some were Brahmanas. So we see here also how even right here it's described how there were Brahmanas coming out of some of the family members. Megatiti had sons who were Brahmanas headed by Prakshana. So in this way we have the Brahmana dynasties also appearing. But generally, of course, the famous dynasties are the dynasties of the kings or the Kshatriyas, because here we're tracing the lineage of the descendants of Manu. And in this particular canto, we get a tracing of the Sun dynasty and the Moon dynasty, both of which were generally Kshatriya dynasties. But we see that sometimes we have Brahmanas arising through this dynasty. So some of the sons took up a Brahminical occupation instead of that of Kshatriya. And as Prabhupada remarks here, that therefore we understand that the qualification for Varna is not simply birth, but it is mainly based on quality. So if one has the quality of a Brahmana, although born from a Kshatriya mother and father, then he is classified as a Brahmana and he takes to the Brahmana activities. So in other words, it's the qualities rather than the birth which is prominent. Of course, we can also not discard the aspect of birth. So birth is also one consideration. But on the other hand, we do have the development of qualities. Qualities, of course, is a little controversial because what is one's quality? We sometimes develop qualities. So we see that some people develop qualities according to association or according to environment. That's quite common. And qualities develop due to education as well. And qualities develop due to the conduct of the parents. So if the parents have a certain conduct, generally children will have that sort of conduct too. So there are many factors involved in determining our final qualities. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur has mentioned that therefore we determine the quality of a person when he is mature, when he's grown up, 18 years old or so, after he's been educated and he's had associated with parents. So then we finally get the final result when he is grown up, and presumably he won't change after that. So before that there may be some change of character, etc., due to education, association, whatever. But by the time he's 18, generally his character is settled. So it's at that time that one should choose particular varna of a person. What is his occupation and what is his duties within that occupation? So therefore we have a determination of varna based upon qualities, not simply by birth. However, we do see that in general in India, it's easier. People, they don't consider the qualities at all. They just go by the birth because it's easier. So this also has some sort of rationale behind it or reasoning behind it, because we see generally that parents of certain qualities will have children of the same qualities. This is the hereditary type of fact. But we do have exceptions as well. So sometimes we get demons like a King Vena arising in the family. The Kshatriyas, he was supposed to be a Kshatriya, but he wasn't a real Kshatriya at all, so they had to kill him. Of course, his mother also was considered to be not of good quality, that's why. So sometimes the parental lineage, even though they may be qualified, they may give rise to progeny which are not so qualified. It's also there. Or people who are not so qualified, sometimes they give rise to children who are very, very qualified. So this is, of course, all material because this is consideration of gunas. And the whole concept of varna is attached to this whole idea of varnashram system, in which people are classed according to their material gunas. And therefore, we can judge them in that way. So anyway, birth has some consideration. But ultimately we should look at the qualities as well. So therefore, a person who is born in a Brahmin family but has no interest in doing Brahmana activities, why force him to do it? He will naturally take to some other activities, and therefore let him follow those rules, etc. So in this case, we find that some of the Kshatriyas they were born of Kshatriya parents, but they had more inclination to study the Vedas and follow the Acharya of Brahmana. So they became Brahmanas and they started Brahmana lineages. So there was some flexibility in the labeling of the varnas in these particular ages, previous ages. So it was not simply by birth. So as I mentioned, this is all within the gunas. When it comes to being a devotee or a Vaishnava, there is disregard for gunas. So, in other words, we find a person like regarding a hunter who was not even a Sudra technically. He was a hunter who didn't even follow the rules of a hunter. He killed the animals and half left them half dead. So he had no real varna at all. He was an outcast. And he became a great devotee beyond the gunas. and he got Baba in 3 months. That was, of course, the mercy of Narada Muni. But anyway, he surpassed the gunas. And there are many statements in Bhagavatam that say that the outcasts, the chandalas, the malachas, the punas, the sabaras, etc., they can all take to the process of devotional service and surpass the gunas. So they surpass all the varnas simply by the process of bhakti. So though there is some absorption in this society of tracing family lineages through varnas, at the same time, ultimately Bhagavatam is showing that being a devotee is beyond this completely. And it doesn't matter what varna you're in when you're a devotee of the Lord. Of course, the people within the varnas, they can also practice bhakti. And they're encouraged to practice bhakti. And in fact, the varnashram system without any bhakti is also not a varnashram system properly. It doesn't work. So there is some recognition of the Supreme Lord within the system itself. However, we don't call varnashram bhakti. We don't say varnashram equals bhakti or karma yoga equals bhakti. Exactly. It has elements of bhakti in it. Because without the mercy of the Lord, the system also doesn't work. To get the mercy of the Lord, you have to respect the Lord. So therefore, worship of the Lord is inherent in the varnashram system as well. However, there are many other activities within that varnashram system which we could say are a distraction from the process of bhakti. So, though there may be worship of the Lord, then we have a very strong inclination towards artha and kama. And therefore we also have worship of devatas to fulfill your material desires. And we have concentration on duties of work, what types of work you can do, what is permissible for you as a kshatriya, or a brahmin, or a vaishya, or a sudra. And everything is classified and we fit into some category of work. And each particular varna has particular rules to follow in terms of sense control. So in this way, the different rules for the different varnas set up. And we can say there's a little bhakti there, but there is a concentration on these other aspects of material sustenance and material enjoyment. And when one comes to the Brahminical level, then we shift over from material enjoyment and we go for liberation, or jnana and liberation. The process of bhakti is labeled as a separate sadhana because the main element is the activities of bhakti, which are hearing about the Lord, chanting the names of the Lord, the glories of the Lord, associating with the devotees of the Lord, worshiping the Lord. So, as a process, these are the main activities. These are not the main activities of the varnashram system. They are secondary. So when these become the main activities, then we call it bhakti. However, though we do bhakti, we can also do other activities. Of course, we do have people that only do bhakti. But then they would have to renounce because they don't have to work and they don't do anything and they're not part of society. So those are completely renounced persons. They only do the process of the bhakti. So more common is the person who also is doing other activities besides bhakti, though that's his main spiritual sadhana. So therefore, he has two choices. One is participate in the varnashram or not participate. So some people have no choice because they're not in the varnashram system at all anyway. They're not born there. People in other countries, so they just do bhakti. And there's no fault in doing so. Then we have the people born in India. Then they have a choice of following varnashram rules along with their process of bhakti. And we see that as the case, of course, with many of these great devotees who are also leaders, the great kings. They were doing both processes. There's also no criticism of that. As long as the principles of bhakti are not contaminated by the principles of karma yoga. In other words, we don't start mixing the desires, etc. So when we start mixing in the karma or the desires, then we get a mixed type of bhakti. So this mixture can be of two types in terms of karma yoga. One is the actions. In other words, we use some of the actions that are there in the varnashram system, the actions of duties of a brahmana or a kshatriya or a vaishya, etc. So they are defined. So a person follows those activities and he does bhakti. So that's allowed. But if we're going to practice pure bhakti, we have to exclude those things which are contrary to bhakti, like worship of devatas, etc. And all that. The other type of mixture is to mix not only the angas of karma yoga, but also the desires of karma yoga, artha, dana, kama. So to mix the artha and kama into that is not so permissible. Then we have mixed bhakti in the sense of karma mishra bhakti with other desires. And it's no longer uttama bhakti. The other mixture, whether we mix the angas without the desires, that's okay. So therefore we have Abhilasha Dashvina again, karma janapratam. The karma does not cover up the bhakti. It can be done, but it in no way contradicts the bhakti. And it doesn't mix the bhakti with the desires. Then it's permissible. And we still call it uttama bhakti. So, as I said, many of the great devotees mentioned in the Bhagavatam practice both systems and had no material desires. Others did have some desires. And sometimes they have to be corrected. So you see kings that sometimes have to be put on the right path. So, therefore we have a mixture of desires and a mixture of simple angas without the desires. So, of the two, the mixture of the angas without the desires is preferable. Then it's still uttama bhakti. When we start mixing the desires, it becomes impure. We don't call it pure bhakti anymore. So, therefore, the process of bhakti is applicable to all the people in the varnashram system. So one can participate in the varnashram system and also carry out the process of bhakti. And one can practice pure bhakti also. And we don't criticize the person and say you're not doing pure bhakti. But when we start mixing the desires in, then we get a problem. And it's not called pure bhakti anymore, or pure bhakti. So everybody in the varnashram system can do that bhakti, and therefore we say he's doing bhakti yoga. But a person who's not in the varnashram system would also do the same thing. What is the difference? He will support himself and maintain his body by not following the rules of varnashram, etc. But he also has to follow the rules of bhakti. So in his occupation, he should not contradict the rules of bhakti or whatever like that. And supporting his body, he should not contradict the rules of bhakti. So, we don't consider one superior or inferior. The main thing is the process of bhakti itself. So, bhakti does not consider the gunas at all, because it itself is nirguna. So, therefore, anyone who practices goes beyond the gunas. Now, generally, we see this as a gradual process. We go through an artha, etc. Then we get to bhava and prema. At the same time, it is stated that one who practices bhakti then he transcends the gunas. And one who meditates on the lotus of the Lord even once transcends the gunas. So that is directly stated in the Bhagavatam. And therefore it says that that person who can meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord or chant the name of the Lord once purely, he is beyond the gunas. But therefore, he can do whatever a Brahmin can do. He is not restricted even if he is a Chandala. He can do the sacrifice that a Brahmin can do. That is the statement of Bhagavatam. Which implies that even immediately, with the practice of bhakti, one has surpassed the gunas. So, therefore, the process of bhakti is very special. It disregards the gunas, and therefore disregards the varnas completely in one sense. In that sense. Because it itself is, bhakti is actually directly part of the Supreme Lord. It's the Shakti of the Supreme Lord. The Swarup Shakti of the Lord, or internal energy of the Lord, is manifested in different ways, and it's all considered non-different from Him. So one manifestation of that is bhakti, another manifestation is the consorts of the Lord like Lakshmi and Radha and Rukmini. They're also non-different from the Lord. Another manifestation of the eternal Shakti is the Dhamma, which is also non-different from the Lord. Okay? So, bhakti is very, very close to the Supreme Lord, and therefore very, very powerful to deliver people from this material world. So, though the varnashram system aims at helping us transcend the gunas by gradual elevation through the gunas and then going for moksha from sattva guna, the process of bhakti does that, but it can do so immediately. And therefore it is said that the person who concentrates on the lotus feet of the Lord once or chants the name of the Lord once, then he is qualified to do the sacrifice of a brahmana. So this is not an idea that the Vaishnava is a brahmana, but rather means that he surpasses the brahmana. So it is not the goal of Vaishnavas to become brahmanas, it's the goal of Vaishnavas simply to be Vaishnavas. And we surpass the brahmanas also. So therefore, theoretically, the Vaishnava can do whatever the brahmana can do because he is beyond the gunas. So therefore, he can do anything within the gunas also. Though, if the Vaishnava becomes attached to sattva guna or the duties of a brahmana, then that is also a disqualification. He gets caught in the gunas because of that. So he should be very careful if he does brahminical activities, not to be too attached to those activities. Because those are, say, material activities, sattva guna. So based on this, we have within our sampradaya a unique feature. Generally, the Vaishnavas, though they explain this verse in the Bhagavatam, the Chandala, who chants the name once as superior to the Brahmana for the sacrifice, nobody implemented it. And there were people like Haridas Thakur who remained separate. They didn't worship deities, they didn't do anything, they just chanted the holy name. Rupa Goswami also couldn't go in the temple, Jagannath, etc. They didn't participate with other people so much like that. That rule that the Chandala becomes superior to the Brahmana was never practically instituted. We don't see suddenly all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who were Sudras or Mlachas doing brahminical activities. It didn't really take place. Maybe it's a few instances, but we don't see much about that. It's very, very, very conservative in one sense. So generally the Vaishnavas didn't mind anyway because nobody's attached to political activities as Vaishnavas. Generally the Vaishnava is not really interested in that. He's interested in chanting the holy name, etc. So that's another reason why they didn't get involved in that. But generally we see that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas did follow the varnashram system to some degree. And many of the gurus were from Brahmin families and they maintained the status as Brahmins, etc. So then we have the Goswami lines coming out of that. And we see that practically most of the famous lines of Diksha lines are Brahmins. They started lines. Of course, we do have Narottam Das Thakur, who wasn't a Brahmana, but we don't really trace any famous lines coming through so much, not so much. So anyway, the system was a little bit conservative then. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because of the heavy criticism from some Brahmanas and Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and they're not very qualified, they shouldn't worship the deity, the Shalagram Shiva, because many are Brahmanas. Yeah? So therefore, to counteract that idea, they said that he argued that, taking this verse from the Bhagavatam, the Vaishnava is superior to the Brahmana. Yeah? And therefore he says that Vaishnava who takes Diksha
therefore he becomes qualified to do whatever a Brahman can do. And therefore, when he gave Diksha, he also gave the Brahman thread and the Upanayana ceremony and the mantra, etc. Which says he's qualified. So in one sense, he's a Brahmana in one sense, but actually the idea is he surpassed whatever the Brahmana is, and he can do whatever the Brahmana can do. So the main criticism was the Gaudiya Vaishnavas who are not Brahmanas should not worship the deity. So they said, no, they're all equal status, so therefore I give them a Brahman first. So, okay, they can all worship deity, etc. They can do all the activities of Brahmana. So that was the main purpose behind that. So this he added on to the traditional Vaishnava ceremony, which is simply giving the Vaishnava mantras and nothing to do with the Varnashram system. It's simply giving Vaishnava mantras. So he added this element there. Yeah. So therefore, this practically implemented the statement of the Bhagavatam that one who chants the holy name once becomes qualified to do the sacrifice of a Brahmana, etc. So in this way, he changed that system. Now the other point, of course, is in Kali Yuga, the Varnashram system also tends to disintegrate. Yeah? So of course 500 years ago it had some strength, but then of course the Muslims came and so many things happened after that. And now we have the modern age, and again there is more disintegration of the whole system, the social organization, etc. So not much of the traditional system is left. There's no kings, there's no person to implement properly, and Varnas himself is becoming rather, not following their occupations. They're changing their occupations according to convenience of what job they can get in society, that's all. So they're just forced to take whatever job they can get and survive in the material world. So therefore they're not even acting according to their Varna. So therefore the system again is becoming, rapidly is disintegrating its rules and regulations, etc. However, as the Bhagavatam says, though Kali Yuga is full of faults and all these things are going to happen, disintegration of the whole system is there. The name of Krishna is the great quality of Kali Yuga, so Nam Sankirtan is the process that everybody can follow, and even if they cannot follow the system properly, or the rules and regulations of Varnashram, to a large degree still, they can be successful simply by chanting the holy name and taking the process of bhakti. So therefore the Varna and the duties of the Varnas is not so significant in Kali Yuga. The main emphasis is on bhakti and chanting the name.
You said that in the Varnashram system, the Artha and Kama is the main element of this problem, which creates some problem for the bhakti. But even because to get Artha and Kama, we need to worship some demigods in the Varnashram system. But we can worship the Supreme Lord also to get this Artha and Kama also, and it becomes Karma Vishnu.
Yeah, so they also worship the Supreme Lord along with the devatas. They worship everybody.
No need to worship the devatas.
But they do. Because it is there. And we see the Puranas glorifying all the devatas. So then one day we have devata temples everywhere in India.
But is it compulsory in the Varnashram system that they have to worship the demigods?
Not compulsory, but generally they're trained to worship all the gods, so to speak. So they worship Vishnu, they worship Ganesh, they worship Surya, they worship Durga, they worship Shiva. And the Panchapasana, 5 deities. That's the smart man.
The devatas are also very exalted devotees of the Supreme Lord Maharaj. So, in one sense, why are they even accepting it and giving anything to those who worship? They could just stop giving anything so that they'll think, okay, the devatas are not giving anything, let me go to the Supreme Lord.
Well, I suppose even in the Varnashram system, they cannot avoid the worship of Vishnu. cannot disrespect Vishnu, they also have to worship. If they do disrespect Vishnu, then I think the Devatas themselves will not give the proper results for them. But in general, the whole idea of worshiping Devatas is to encourage people to do some sort of worship. So they want to get some material desires fulfilled or whatever. So let them at least worship some Devata of some sort, rather than nobody. So that's the first type of thing. Worship somebody at least and admit some higher authority, even if it's not the Supreme Lord. So by doing that, getting the idea of a higher authority and worshiping, then they can progress to understanding who is the Supreme Authority, Vishnu, when they get to pass through the gunas.
Maharaj, you said one who chants even a holy name once is above Brahmana. So, but in ISKCON we see for deity worship or maybe to prepare Bhoga for the Lord, there is a standard that one's supposed to be a Brahmana, second initiated devotee. But is it not an offense to those who chant the holy name of the Lord? I mean, is it?
No. Yeah. So technically, to worship the deity, one does not have to be a Brahmana. One has to be a Vaishnava. So Pancharatrically, one should take Diksha for that. Even if he didn't get the Brahmanical, he was disqualified. And of course, that's the position before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Some maybe not from low caste, did not have a thread. And they were qualified to worship the deity. But of course, it would cause controversy with the Brahmins or whatever. If he's not qualified, look, he hasn't got a thread, how can he worship the deity? And so therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta gave the thread to everybody who was Vaishnava for that reason only. But technically, it's not required. Anyone who is a bona fide initiate in Pancharatra is qualified to worship the deity. But then he added this Brahmanical element also. So that is, of course, one standard. Now, of course, the verse itself doesn't say that. It doesn't talk about that initiation. It just says meditate on the Lord or even chant the name of the Lord once. So Bhaktisiddhanta, of course, in his purport says that he should be qualified with initiation. However, if we take the holy name as the most powerful purifying element, we would logically conclude that simply by chanting the holy name we get the same qualification without the Diksha, which is also there. In other words, it's not that Diksha is more powerful than chanting the holy name. Nam is more powerful than the Diksha mantras. So therefore, the chanting of the holy name, if it is done in proper association, is the most powerful of all. And it would also take you beyond the levels. So theoretically then, one could also do whatever the Brahman can do, etc. So that's a further step that maybe in the future somebody will do beyond what Bhaktisiddhanta did. And theoretically we say it's correct probably, because that's exactly what Bhagavatam says, but he was a little cautious also, so therefore he did the Diksha. It was a qualifying element of purity.
Do they get the mantra without getting the thread also, man?
Previously, that was the system. They may, of course, as children get the thread anyway, because they come from upper caste anyway, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Brahmana, they got threads anyway. And if they weren't, then the Sudras didn't, or Malachas didn't. But they could all take initiation. But they would not get the thread. That thread was not part of the ceremony. It was separate. So as a child, one would get one's Upanayana, and then later one would be a Vaishnava. If one didn't have Upanayana, then would take initiation without the thread. It's either way.
And they get the mantra.
But they get the mantras.
Maharaj, like in the Gurukul in Mayapur, they give the sacred thread after a few years, which is not related to the initiation.
Yeah.
What is that thread?
That's the same thing. That is like the traditional system, where it's in South India or wherever they take Upanayana when they're 5 years old or whatever. Something like that. So it's not related to the Vaishnava initiation. I don't know what they do in second initiation, whether they give another thread or whatever. But they do. Other procedures, but they don't have to technically once they got that.
Is it Varnashram, Maharaj? Is it Varnashram?
That's like a Varnashram rule, in one sense it's Varnashram, but maybe it's not traditional Varnashram because they're initiating everybody with the thread. But, according to tradition, then you would have to be born in a Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmin family, but they don't consider that. They just consider, okay, they're Brahminical. So they're looking at quality only without the birth.
But if they were already Brahminical, they got the mantra and they're chanting with the thread, and they get a second initiation in ISKCON, do they have to give up the earlier one? And
technically, no. Though probably they do, but I don't know. This is no real rule on that, but technically they wouldn't have to because it's not that important anyway. But if they already had a thread, then why they have to get another thread? Technically, because there's the Vaishnava.
But doesn't it have a relationship with the Prayojana, that in terms of where the mantra, what is the mantra that was given earlier and how is it going to help them to?
Well, generally we don't concentrate on the Gayatri, the Brahma Gayatri mantra as our sadhana or as our means of connecting with Krishna. So it's just a symbolic element, as far as I see it, once a symbolic element. That's all. That we're superior to the Brahma and whatever like that.
I think normally previously whatever mantra they get only Brahma Gayatri, they don't get other mantras. They don't get other mantras. This those are Brahman.
Yeah, they get the Brahma Gayatri mantra. They're not taking Vaishnava initiation.
Yeah,
they could be smart as Shivites, whatever.
So I think because of this, my guru say that take out this thread because you are going to get new thread with the same mantra, with the other mantra, the Vaishnava mantra.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it maybe.
Oh, possibly. Yeah, because the mantra wasn't given through a Vaishnava, whatever like that.
But doesn't it become offensive to the earlier one that was given?
Well, usually, who gives the mantra in Upanayana? Is it the father or is it the priest? It's kind of ambiguous, and technically they're not even a guru, because they don't know anything, they don't know the meaning of the mantra, they don't know anything about it, so technically there's no real spiritual significance in it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Because nobody uses the mantra for anything anyway.
Maharaj, those devotees who are born in Brahmin family and who have sacred thread. So after taking first initiation, is it required for them to take second initiation because they already have the...
No, they have to take the deity mantras, that's important. That is what constitutes Diksha, not the Gayatri. So you can take Diksha without the Gayatri, the Vedic Gayatri mantra, and that is for the Vaishnavas.
Even as Vaishnavas propagate the concept of being Dasamdas. At the same time, the Vedic concept is not applied for the worship of the Devatas. The worship of Devatas, being Dasamdas. They are the devotees of the Lord, and somebody worshiping why they are not as Dasamdas.
They can be. So, if one worships the Devatas as simply as servants of the Lord and gives them the prashadam of Vishnu or Krishna, there's no problem with that. So you can do that. But generally that's not what people do. They just worship the Devatas as supreme or whatever. Everybody's equal. Vishnu and Devatas are equal, so that's their problem. But you can worship that way.
Maharaj, in Gaur Leela, Chaturabhaga Ghosh showed the 600 form. So likewise, Vishnu, can he show Krishna's form? Can Vishnu show?
No.
So in that way, is it, you have told several times that in Vishnu Tattva, the different forms of the Lord, they have all qualities, but they cannot manifest it. But they have all qualities. So why not Vishnu cannot show Krishna's form?
We can say this is their constitutional position is, we can say, somewhat limited by that particular form. So they don't go beyond that, the borders of their rasa, etc.
But every avatar has a purpose and lila. According to that only
They function according to their particular form and pastimes.